Thank you. I recognize the Junior Minister for Fisheries, Honourable Dawson.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I actually will be truly brief. My comments, not because the act is not important, because I think but because I believe that a lot needs to be said has been ventilated. But I think it's important to put on record your views and your comments on matters such as this. As has been said, the primary motivation, if you will, for bringing this piece of legislation to be passed, the bill, related to the fourth round mutual evaluation report of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. But once it is in law, it will not be categorized and limited in its application, but will be used across all scopes for which it can apply. So the importance for us to take the broad view as far as how this law, what it should look like and how it should be applied. I think it's fair to say that the world we live in is ever changing, and so are the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Crime, as well as the investigation of crime, is dynamic. The things that were put in place in acts perhaps done not too long ago, provisions were not made for things that would evolve. A number of the things that are common in fighting crime now and expected in most modern countries may not have necessarily been accounted for in the development of our laws. And so one of the things that we are here to do today is to fill in the gaps, areas that were not clear, techniques and approaches that the police may use in the detection and presenting of evidence for prosecution for crime. A number of those things we need to clarify and make it sure that it's absolutely certain as to how it is to be used in our setting. And as has been said, in developing those laws and making it clear as to how the resources available to police can be enhanced, we must at the same time address the question of the rights of individuals and ensuring that the appropriate safeguards are in place to ensure no abuse. Now, in the legislation before us, there have been attempts to ensure that abuse does not take place. There have been provisions in the legislation, for instance, that says a reason must be given for application for some particular pieces of resources or procedures in the investigative process. And then there are opportunities for us during the committee stage to address it at all levels. On the one hand, they may have indicated or proposed the range of things, and we may determine that the range of things are not appropriate. They may have also put in there as to who should approve. And again, that's something that has been spoken of much by our colleagues. And again, that's something that we will have to look at in the committee stage and determine that the approval, again, is appropriate. The implications for the lives of individuals as a result of the misuse of a law such as this can be great. So we must ensure and put the provisions in place to make sure that such misuse never takes place. that an investigation, for instance, cannot be inappropriately expanded. That you go, as they would say, on a fishing expedition. You went looking for one thing and all of a sudden it could be expanded. And there are some efforts here to ensure that that does not take place, but we must make sure that opposed to simply what is being proposed by the technocrats and brought to this House, and I'm sure that there would have been some instances, we've had the opportunity to look at this legislation in informal session. Cabinet would have had an opportunity to look at it, and there would have been things that would have been shaved off. But I think that this is the most appropriate place for us to fully determine what should happen. That there would be things that even as the Premier and those presenting would have allowed to come to this House, maybe perhaps they had an ambivalent view as to whether or not it should be in the law, but rather than taking on in the executive function, taking on the legislative aspect of our work, bring it to the legislature. Bring it to the legislature, bring it to the House of Assembly to make those determinations. Put the cards on the table in the legislation and let the decision be made here rather than determining for yourself what should be in such an important act as this. The mention was also made of the need for cooperation across borders as crime or world itself is shrinking and has shrunk, where communication takes place across borders all day and all night. And it's important that we establish not only the connections to cooperate with other states, but also to the boundaries to which those connections could extend. Because again, in utilizing those relationships with other states, it is the possibility that there's opportunity for abuse. And so in our undertaking here today, and hopefully what I believe would be in a short while, it is our business to take what, in my view, is a well-intended piece of legislation and to make it fit for purpose for the government, people's police of the Virgin Islands. And I look forward anxiously to taking part in that discussion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.